Hey guys, good morning. It's David here with DavidRBecker.com. Welcome to this snowy Sunday morning here in Illinois. Woke up and to the plow in front of our house plowing the streets. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. That's different. Anyways, so we're gonna do a little fisherman here today, and let me just tell you that this fisherman was created in AI. This was I had went into Photoshop and you can ask Photoshop nowadays to do anything you want regulate it and make things whatever you want them to be. And so this is an AI picture that actually this I had done one like this. This is not the exact one I've done, but this is an AI, definitely an AI created image, and so meaning that the computer created it. And so I've been dealing with that a little bit and trying to figure that out with Photoshop. But this is basically a picture, and you can tell I'm doing it on a board. I'm doing it on a crescent board, and I'm doing it on one that I already drew something on. And as you can tell here, I'm just gonna put it right over that. I just didn't want to waste the board. I had drawn something else on it, a scene that didn't work out, and so I thought. So you see a couple lines in his face that are just erased from the picture that was underneath it. But anyways, let's just get going here. And this board is a little bit not as textury as like a arches or a Stonehenge, but I just wanted to. I'm getting used to working on board, and I didn't have time to put glue a board on until Stonehenge comes out with their board next month. I think in December they're going to start coming out with their panels. I've got to use this, and because I like to wax my things now afterwards, and so this is so much nicer. Anyways, the background right here, if you look, it's out of focus, and I did that on purpose. It was in focus a lot, and actually it was just as in focus as almost the guy was. I took it out of focus because I want to push it to the background, and I want to show you how I gonna try to do a little bit more painting where I'm working wet into wet and trying to get this into the background. So let me just do my lights first, my light colors, and being that basically the only lights that are in there is the sky and on the side of his face. The middle tones in his face, those I can consider to be also in the dark, though a little bit into the light. So part of his face is in the light and part of it is in the dark, and so that's the center of interest. And of course, you can do that anytime you want. And I'm just gonna try to get my background done first, and I'm just gonna wet everything. Gonna wet everything right through his face. I put down masking fluid. You can see I use Holbein masking fluid. It's nice and blue and it repels, so you'll be able to see that, which is really nice. And so I'm just gonna kind of go through here. I'm just gonna wet everything. And because I do want to make this background right here a little bit darker to cover up my lines that I put there before. So when I wet it, I kind of let it sit for a little bit because it's got to soak into the paper a little bit. And so then I evenly distribute the water throughout the whole paper. And I'm gonna make it pretty close to these kind of the more muted colors. I want them to be a grimy old fisherman and stuff. So I'm gonna not make it really colorful, but I'm gonna make it like in sunset. And so we'll go with some. Of course, I didn't wipe off my palette, and I didn't put on my period gloves. Okay. So let's see. I washed all my towels that I use, and but I really enjoy using my towels. I think it's probably the best thing. Ooh, looking like I erased here a little bit too much. The paper was I maybe pushed it a little bit too hard on the paper. Because if you tend to erase with a too rough an eraser, you can damage the paper. So use a little pink in here. And I want my brightest spot to be right here, which I just went over. So let's just make that the brightest spot. I'm using my oranges. I'm kind of dulling them down a little bit with a little bit of lavender, a violet. Kind of graying it up a little bit. And like the boat back there, I'm gonna put it in while it's wet. Go right into his coat. That's fine. Get a little bit more pink again, right through the middle, kind of where, right through here, right through this side. I can go into his face a little bit, you know, bringing some of that color into his face, into his hat definitely, because everything else is dark from the sky, and so I'm just kind of. Hey, Mary Beth. Hey, Maria. Maria, are you back from Portugal? Some great, amazing pictures you took of Portugal. Some I was like, boy, I hope you paint them pretty soon. Those look really, really cool. Some of the pictures you had taken in Portugal. And so here I'm just, again, I'm playing with the background sky, just kind of going in there, making it a kind of purpley, warm sky, evening, sunset. Going right into his face, and leaving that spot white, the light there, going in with some pinks around this area. Let it float. You notice I'm going into his face. That's okay, because I can just have a general wash across it to get some of those colors. It's kind of muted. Yes, it is kind of muted, but that's okay. So you're back, huh? Boy, that was a nice fast trip, but boy, it looked beautiful. I had yesterday in my class, another one of my students who also went to Portugal. She was on a cruise ship to Portugal, and I showed some of your pictures to her, and she recognized a lot of the places. So everybody's going to Portugal. So a lot of people I went to Portugal last week and the week before. So here now what I'm doing is I'm going to draw in this little boat, and you notice how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with wet in the wet, and so I want you to see the boat, but then again I don't want you to see the boat. I don't want it to be in focus. I just need it to look like there's something in the background, and so I'm using a little bit thicker, and here's maybe a little bit water, and so it's going to be out of focus is what I want. I don't want you to see it to where it's like hard edged, that's exactly what it was in the photograph, and I toned it down so that I don't want to see that hard edge, because I just want it to be in the background. Yes, I do want it to be a boat, but I don't need it to look really sharp and hard edged. So I can draw a little bit while it's wet. Use a thick amount of pigment. You know, there's like a little round circle there, like a life thing. Life preserver type of thing. And then there's the part of this that's like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm just gonna kind of put in the look of like, this is probably the top of the building of the boat, inside the bridge of the boat. And then this, I'm not sure if it did it right, but I'm gonna put this up here and just put like a little post up here. I'm not gonna make it as dark as in the photo. I just want it to be less. Here's another post of some type back there. And now this is a little bit too much like the sky, and so I've got to make that a little bit different. 8.5 inches of snow for Darcy. Wow. We only have about an inch, so we're good right now. Though it is still snowing right at the moment as I'm looking out the window. Hey Pat. Hey Mary Beth. So let's do a little bit of blue on on this side of the boat, a bit darker. See how I'm just working all my soft edges. I'm getting the soft edges in there. They're not going to be hard edged, and I want to keep them, you know, low key. I don't want them to be sticking out too far. I want the face to be your center of interest. Though I do want something up here just to kind of get you to look like, oh, look at that, there's a boat back there. But not with a hard edge. I just want it to be the background, out of focus, soft edged. And you have to work this wet into wet. I have to work it wet into wet when I'm doing something where I'm just really trying to learn how to do this really well, where you do the background out of focus. It's almost like photographers take things out of focus. And so you need to keep things nice and wet, and smooth. And I'm just trying to figure out too how detailed I can get with the soft edges. Like, can I go really thin lines? Can I go thick lines? You know, what can I get out of that? A bit of darker purple here. That's a pretty thin line right there. And how detailed do I want to get it? You know, do I want it to a point where you can actually recognize, like it's a window, or do I just want it totally out of focus? Then of course the sun is going to be on this side, so let's put a little bit of orange on the side where the sun is hitting. Maybe the same thing up here, a little bit thicker. Sun's hitting that a little bit. I'm not sure what all this stuff is over here, but it's just something. Again, it'll also dry a lot lighter than this, and so it'll just be something in the background. A little bit more. Here, I'm just getting and if you know boats, and if you like a certain subject matter, you know, I'm just going to make a lot of this up because I know kind of like, that's one of my favorite subject matters is doing boats. And so I know what, I've done a lot of fishing boats, so I know what is in a fishing boat and how it kind of looks. And so you just kind of fake a little bit of it. Is that round? I don't want to make this thing too much. That's almost too bright there. See how long you can work it? I mean, you can work it quite a ways and quite a while until it starts getting overworked, but it's still floating. The pigment's still floating. I can pull out areas too by taking a thirsty brush and pulling out back to the light of the paper. Again, this is a board though. This is and I feel like I ruined it a little bit by using this is an old board that I had used, and I drew something on it and I just erased it. I think I may have erased a little bit too hard, and so I'm seeing that it's kind of soaking in, and I kind of damaged the top of the paper. That's okay. We can just deal with that. So let's get some of this into here too, because this is the background from through this into this. I could actually just do the arm and just, let's go back in now. And so that's pretty much what I have for my background. Let me look for a second. I have a hake brush. So this is a hake brush, and with goat hair. And so I want to soften some of these edges. And all you have to do is just tickle it, and you can soften an edge. And it has to be totally dry. And see, I'm just kind of taking it and wiping it, and it makes things soft, smooth, because you're taking away the water and kind of pushing the pigment around. So you can smooth out an area. It just kind of pushes everything around and makes it smooth and soft. I think that'll be it for my background. I think that's good enough. Out of focus, enough detail to where it kind of looks like it's, you know, you can, like it's a boat, but So Maria is asking, how long does it stay wet compared to paper? About the same. It all depends on how much it absorbs. Like I'm using, this is cold press, and cold press board is, it dries a little bit faster only because it's not sucking in as far. So if like an arches that sucks in a real lot of paint and water, that's going to stay wet a lot longer. Because this is, if it's sitting on top, then it takes it goes a little bit faster because it just dries, it evaporates really quickly. So let me go right into his face right away, because that's going to be the second most important right now, because I'm coming forward and he's still, if I'm working the light, I'm going to work his face, I'm going to wet his face. And so I got the background to where I want, I'm just going to keep it like that. And so now I'm going to get the lights in his face, but I'm going to have to get right away, get the darks. And so I'm going to take my smaller, I can take my smaller round brush, but I do like my flat brush. So I'm going to go in here with some flesh tone, which is basically orange and pinks. And on him, he's a very gruff kind of guy. And so I'm just going to lay the pigment in here. And a little bit of red, you know, and the forehead is usually more yellows in the head, and then as you get to the cheeks, it gets pinker, right? You get pinks in the cheeks. Right down in here, you get a little bit more pink. So don't be afraid of putting some pink in the cheeks. And then I don't have to worry too much about the light, this highlight right here, because I put masking fluid there, so I wouldn't lose that. I should have put down a color first, but I'll have to put it in afterwards, but that's okay. So I'm going to build up on my darks, and again, yellows in the forehead, rosy cheeks, and then down by his beard, of course, you don't see any flesh, so that normally would be grayer, but it's going to be a lighter gray because it is his beard, a white beard. And so I'm just going to put a little lavender in there for his beard. So it's not super white, it's still in shadow, and it's kind of like an off-white. Some rosy cheeks. And then I'm going to start drawing a little bit more and more with thick amounts of pigment to get the shadowing. And, you know, I'm going to make it nice and thick on my brush. And I am, like I said, I'm using a smaller brush because I need to. Draw. It's almost like a pencil. So I'm kind of drawing into the wet wash. The name of my pink is, I have two pinks. Actually, I got three pinks. I got Opera, I have Shell Pink, and Brilliant Pink. This is Brilliant Pink, Shell Pink, and Opera. So I'm just gonna work my pigment so it only goes to a certain distance and find out where my darks are. I'm losing my drawing a little bit because I'm going over, but that's okay. I can see enough to where I'm drawing with my brush. I'm gonna take a little bit of this really dark color and go in here. Now see, when I put it down and I know it's starting to bleed, I have to tap it onto my paper, onto my cloth here, my towel, and so they get rid of the water. So I'm putting down pure pigment. So I want to put down pure pigment so it doesn't bleed. And it just still gives me a soft edge, and then I can just lightly manipulate the pigment around the wet wash. And I don't have to get the hard edges yet. I don't have to get like the right in his eye. You know, you barely see a little bit of his eye. But I'm just gonna go in there and get the shape of the shadows right now. And then this is gonna dry pretty light, and so it looks dark, but it's gonna dry a lot lighter than it looks. And then we'll go back in and get our hard edges, and that's where we're gonna show where the eye is and all that kind of stuff. But right now it's just the soft edges, picking in the color, trying to get the color. Here we get the side of the nose, the color of the nose, and there's like a nice softness right here. Underneath his nose, it's a little bit darker. See if I can't get a little bit darker. Using a little bit of purple, and this red almost makes a very dark red. And now I'm going to try to really, I'm drawing the shape of his cheek right here. The edge of his nose comes around here. See how I'm doing it while it's wet? I'm just creating shapes, soft edges, because I need them to be soft, and I'm not using any water in my brush right now because it's already down on the paper. So I'm taking pure pigment and blending along. Let's see if you guys got any questions. How long does the temperature of the face? Yes, I think of that a lot. At first I want to make it definitely look like flesh tone, but then I'm gonna pick colors that I'm using around the area. Like I try to make a little bit of, I try to put a little bit of cool color in there, and also purples. Like I use this to like reflect the beard and the actual color of the flesh. But there's a lot of reflective color too that I use. And again, I think a lot about the pink of the cheeks, and that has to be in there so that, because the cheeks are usually warmer. Go up and around this way. Mostly though, you know, I keep on talking about this a lot, is that use whatever color you want, and really make sure you get the right edges and the right values, because really the values are what you're really looking for. The values in the composition of the thing, and the whole face is, if I squint my eye, the whole face has a certain value to it, and that is very important that you keep that. Even with the colors and all that, everything else, you still got to make sure you get the right values for that area, because it's not just a face, it's the whole painting. The whole painting is all incorporated together as one big unit, and so you got to look at what else is around. And I'm making him a little bit warmer, you know, than it is in the picture, but I think that way it'll draw your attention to his face a little bit. And see, I'm getting all the soft edges. I'm not going for detail yet. I'm just trying to get the big areas. A little warmth in his nose, especially underneath here. Try to get the shape. And that you learn like in a life drawing class, you know, how to get the shape of the face to look, like the cheeks underneath the cheeks here. This is darker, and he's got a lot of character lines in he's got a lot of wrinkles in his face, which I'm not putting in now because I'm not going to try to put that in here yet. I'll do that later. Get a little bit of his ear in here. His hair is covering up a lot of his ear. And I need to pull a little bit out right there. I'm just going to take a thirsty brush and pull out a little bit of this color right here. Like on the edge of his nose, I'm pulling it out a little bit. But because I rubbed this with an eraser, it's kind of messed up the paper a little bit. It's got a little bit more texture than I had liked. That's my fault of just using a scrap sheet of paper, basically, is what I used this morning. This is my practice for me, so I don't want to waste a good sheet of paper. A little bit of his mouth down here, a little dark in there. I think I'm going to leave that dry now. Just trying to see if a little bit light right there. Just pulling it out a little bit. Again, you see how it's like a texture, so it's not really coming off. And that means I rubbed the top of the paper a little bit too much with the eraser. All right, so let's get our jacket in there. come back in later and get all our nice darks, our hard edge darks. And just looking one last minute here. I'm just gonna look to see a little bit in his eye right here. It's kind of light. A little bit of a dark right here. And then underneath his eye, he's got little bags, but he's been out fishing all night, so early morning, I mean. Okay, let's try the rest now. Let's get his jacket going. And so with his jacket, I'm going to wet the whole thing again like always. I'm going to wet here first. It's going to come down because the light is going to be hitting there and it's going to get the rest all dark. Basically, his whole jacket is a dark. And there are middle tones in there, but I'm just going to start with the lights. Some nice light colors in there. Reflect some of the colors that I have above. And I'm going to try to keep it cooler, only because I have a warm background. So if I'm going to keep it a little bit cooler, I think, and grayer. But I can start out with a nice bright color right by his face here, and then I can just actually put a little bit of this into his beard, because it will reflect in a little bit into his beard. And here's a basket of fishing net, and so that'll be, let me put in. And again, this is the light, this is light, this is the light part. And then this was something that I'm not sure what it was. It wasn't his leg, but I made it his leg because it looked more like his leg than something that's he's leaning against. Because I think he's standing, but I just made it look like he's kneeling with his leg up here. And that was just my decision to do. Because it was kind of confusing, and so you have to kind of explain a little bit. Let's go right into that. Okay, so let's... See how I don't pick pieces? I don't try right now. Again, when you're doing the lights, when you first put the lights in, I don't go for little pieces. I go in for the whole thing. You need to put the lights in for everything, because this side of his arm is a little bit lighter. So I'm going to get that in there, and then I'll go with my darks. And like I said, I want this a little bit cooler, so let's go with some nice cool colors here. That's not a light though, so let's get a little. And that's pretty thick, huh? That's okay. Again, this is my light. I'm just gonna make this a little bit cooler in front here. And so cool, and then you go up to his face, it gets nice and warm. And I don't look at even what the color of the coat is. The coat is just a brownish, you know, tan, dark coat. A nice Carhartt. And so then I'll go in. Let's make his shirt that sees underneath it red. Let's make that a nice red. I'm just gonna go in here with a nice red, Scarlet Lake red. It can be like even a flannel. Just gonna start with that. And it's pretty dark, but if you just have a hint of the red, it just fits in there really nicely. And again, everything's wet, right? So what am I gonna get? I'm gonna get a soft edge, right? And that's what I want. I'm still not looking for hard edges yet. And they're harder than, you know, they're still harder than soft. They're not really super soft, but like right there, that is a soft edge, but it's a very, very small soft edge because it's wet. It's wet, and so you're always going to get soft edges. And let's make this part of his collar. Comes down here. It's just that controlling your pigment and controlling it to a point where you can make an edge almost hard and white wash is very important, because you can really do a lot then with soft edges. You can make things look really, really interesting because you can blur it easily, you can make it harder. You know, it's all controlling these edges. So important to learn. And anytime you don't want to show something exactly what's going on, that's when you blur it. So that's when you keep it out of focus and you make it soft edged. Okay. And this is a zipper. I put it in the zipper because it's metal, and so there's a little zipper in there you can't even see. But I kind of put masking fluid there just so you can see a little touch of the zipper. Now I'm going to use my bigger brush, and let's go in here and start doing his coat. This coat is pretty dark in some spots, so I'm going to take this a little brown, some dark purple. We'll start out here with this collar, which seems like it was like really dark. Collar comes up here, goes around his other shirt collar. Not dark enough. I want to make it almost black, and so let's take black with a little bit of red. And let's just get in there thick, and look at that edge. It's wet, but look at how much of an edge I got. It's still soft, but it's not as soft as, you know, again, it's a soft edge, but not as soft as these ones with a lot of water. And we'll take a little bit of this orange, and then we'll go in here. And all my pigment is still floating, so I'm still getting it to look transparent. That's you know, a key too, is that I want it to look still transparent, but I want to control enough of the pigment and get the edge. And I look at a lot of Mary White stuff, and I've never seen Mary White stuff who does a lot of people, and so detailed, and so. But there's a lot of parts of her paintings that also are very, very soft edged and big areas done really nicely. So I'm trying to follow that a little bit because I really love her work. So let's go in here and get these hard edges. This is almost like you're working acrylic now. It's so thick, but I'm working in a wet wash, so it feels like almost like you're putting a load of pigment in there. And most watercolorists, especially a lot of beginners, use way too little pigment, and so what you're doing is you're doing more of a tint. You're not doing a really, I call them a tint and a wash. And so to me, this is more of a wash because there's a lot of pigment in there. A tint is a very little bit of pigment with a lot of water. So here we go down, and let's make it nice dark. Let's make it nice and warm. Maybe it cool down here. Let's cool it off right there. Let's cool it down here a little bit. Looks like it needs to be wet a little bit more, so I'm going to take my brush and wet it. Nice blue floating in the bottom here. I use my small brush when I do details. When I want to get some of these wrinkles and these folds in the coat. Tends to have a lot of them in there. Now these are kind of hard edged right here, almost too hard edged. I'm going to add water. So just add water when you want to make them soft. Again, any questions, just ask away. I'll look up her once in a while. Now his leg right there is really dark and it's kind of connected to this part. So I'm going to go in there and just take my nice dark purple, dark Prussian blue, and just kind of connect that. And this is his hand right there. So I'm going to negative paint his hand above it. Bring that all together. I don't need to make this so out of place like you don't see which is what, you know. I just let it all bleed together. Now there is a little bit of light on it. I just looked up and I see there's a little bit of light, so let's take and pull this out. At the same time I'm putting in a little bit of yellow there. There's a little bit of light hitting right there. We've got his arm. His hand color would be, again, like his face color, so that's a little bit pinker. I'm not going to do it now because I want that hard edge to separate his hand from his leg. So let's go over here and keep on going over this way. And looking at the picture now to kind of see where the folds are. There's like, it goes dark right here. And I can stop right there, the edge of his, because it's lighter, his arm, it's a little bit lighter there, so I can stop right there. Wetting it all. See, I'm just wetting it. And then I'll use different colors. Let me sit on this chair. I've got a hair in here too. Okay, hair's gone. All right, so now let's get the darks in there. That's like a middle tone. Now I'm gonna get some darks. So there is a line right here, part of the coat, like a little part of the coat. And then we've got this little fold. I got another fold right here. And it gets really dark. Again, I just dip into all my dark colors, which are all above. This is Midazolone brown. This is permanent violet. This is black, peach black. This is Prussian blue. I'm just going to go in there and just put these darks right down into this wet wash. And then there's a nice dark right here. This even goes dark inside here, so I might as well put that in right away. This all kind of comes together, it's all dark. Now I'm going to go and get the side edge of his arm. And this is all wet in the wet right here, nice and soft edge. It goes right into his arm. I gotta fix the lighting in here. Somehow I can't, I'm looking right into the light when it's wet. Let me put this up for a second. Some tape here. Just put this up so I don't get lighting. Alright. And I know I've been doing a lot of portraits here on Sundays and people, only because it's harder. It's a little bit harder. I don't do it for paint-alongs yet. I will try in coming up, but I'm just trying to practice myself and making sure that when I'm teaching it, that I'm teaching it the right way. Because I haven't done a lot of portraits, and so this Sunday morning has always been my practice time when I'm practicing things and trying new things, and I've been painting a lot of people lately, and I do have a lot of projects on my book right now, and so a lot of abstracts, and so we're gonna try to push this all together as one type of look. And again, anytime I teach something, I always want to be able to do it really well so that I know what I'm doing and I can teach it then. If I don't know how to do it, and I definitely can't teach you if I'm not doing it right. So wet in the wet here. Getting these nice little, this coat has he's got a lot of wrinkles in this coat. A lot of folds, I should say. This is nice and dark. It's got this one. Get another little fold here. And then again, this got kind of light, so let me just darken this up again. And that dried already, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet it again a little bit. Okay. Stand up and look at it for a second. It's Let's make this a little bit higher, his collar. I put a line there that's a little bit too high, but at least you don't see it too much. All right, let's get his hand in there. Let's get some color in his hand. All right, there's his hand. That went pretty fast. Now let's do his hat real quick. His hat is kind of a coolish color, and that's kind of nice. I kind of like that. So let's go with a cool Prussian blue. I'm just going to kind of put that over that really quickly. Wet it with a little bit of color. Now this should be hard edged because the outer edge will be hard because it's dry already, so that's good. And so I'm just going to wet it with a dirty brush. Real quick, I'm going to wet it with a dirty brush, see, which has a little bit of that Prussian blue in it. Go right up to the edge of the masking fluid that I put there. Thank you for showing us your process. Another vibrant, beautiful painting. Well, it's not done yet. So, let's wait until it's done until we can say it's good. I can still wreck it, no problem. Boy, I'm getting all these hairs. There's a hair in my... Am I losing hairs in my brushes? That's weird. All right, so now it's wet. Now it's wet. Now I'm going to shape it also. I'm going to shape it a little bit. And so let's go for our darks. And I'll go for my Prussian blue and my permanent violet again. And my black, a little peach black. And let's go in here and just get this part. That's the back part. And see how nice soft edge it is? It's a knit hat too, so I don't want it hard edged, hard edge. So I like to get a little bit of knitness in there. Knitness? The knitness. Yeah, the knitting of the hat. So I'm getting the material to look very soft. Here we have this little bit of a line here. And I try to be very direct with your brush strokes. I mean, you can tell when I go for a brush stroke, I get it and I get it done. I don't go trying to do it, a couple of times and getting it darker next time. No, I get it done all while it's wet. And I get the soft edge, and then I can also float color in there. So let's put a little warmth in this side here. I can put a little bit of orange on this side because that side's towards the light, right? And so on this side, let's put a little bit of warmth in this side. Keeping some of the light still. And if this paper wasn't so damaged, I could actually pull out some of the paint too, but it's damaged a little bit because I ruined the top of the paper. You can't tell, but I can tell when I ruin something. The top of the paper is not, it's like, I ruined it by putting my kneaded rubber eraser across it too many times, and so I made it fuzzy kind of. And so what happened was then I can't, it's not the paper, it's the fibers on top are kind of, are soft. And so I can't pick up out of there because it's like going into the paper a little bit too much. Probably doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but when you rub your paper too much, you can definitely ruin it. And that's what I did this morning because this paper is a old board that I used before and I drew on it. So now we're going to get these little darks around the edge here. And I can make it look also a little bit more detailed with a little lines like the dark in here. Let's make it a little bit warmer. Pick up some orange. It can be a little reflection of the head. Now this is gonna be hard edge because it's not wet. His face is not wet. I don't want it dry. I don't want to wet it because I want it to be a little bit drier so I can get in there and get my hard edges. Otherwise, we're not gonna have time. What time do we have, anyways? All right. Okay, while that's all drying, let me do this real quick because I also want to take the masking fluid off before I do the face. And this is almost getting dry, so let's do this real quick. It's a little basket here. And basically it's the same as everything else, the basket down here, but I want to be a little bit different, so that I'm going to take some of that bluish color and make it a little bit more cool. separating the hand from the basket of fishing net. This is Prussian blue too, right here. I just put a little bit of that in the thing for my. I'm doing a couple paintings, and I've been putting some of the stuff on the side here just to have it available. I'm not sure why. Because I'm doing 3 paintings, they all have to have the same kind of look and colors, and so I put that out in a little spot so that I know I have to go into that spot and get those colors. Fishing net there. Looks like a pie. It's more like a pie right there. That's all right. It's not all detailed yet. Once I get my detail in there, we'll get a little bit more looking like a net. Put this out a little bit. I should have a mug, right? A mug of beer. All right, so his hair here is way too light, and so I'm just going to tone that down. And with a wispy brush, I'm not wetting it. I'm wetting it as I go along. I'm wisping a little bit. I'm kind of putting my brush into there to make it look very fuzzy. Picking a little bit of fuzz onto the light part here. Pretty much is in the shadow, but I still wanted to have a little bit of a texture of hair. Underneath his cheek here, underneath his chin, on top of his chin, I mean. Make this a little bit darker. Now I forgot, I should have taken the masking fluid off first. Alright, whatever. Just that in a little second. Now while I'm waiting for this to dry, and again I have to take the masking fluid off. Let's get right here. It's a little bit not dark enough. I'm gonna take my round brush, my bigger round brush, a little bit of permanent violet. Just go in there and get a little bit of this, a little bit darker. Now this is going to be hard edge because this is dry now. But once you make that wash now that's with hard edges, and it's wet again, and so now I can put color into there too. Like there's a little bit of warmth that's shining around the outside of this arm, so let me first put it in the dark, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the light, like the little warmth, and float it right in there. A little bit of warmth. Just float it into the wet wash. This whole collar is really dark. There's too much stuff going on right there, so let me just darken this up a little bit too. Boy, I really ruined this paper, and there's a lot of dots in here, a lot of texture. I'm gonna watch that. Don't scrub your paper with a knead rubber eraser really hard. All right, let's go into the face, and with that, for that, I use my small round brush, and it's like a pencil, and I'm gonna go in there and get all my hard dark edges, like his eyes and his eyebrows and anything that's dark. And let me move this up a little bit. Actually, I got a picture of it here in front of me. There we go. So we're gonna make some darks in here. And this is almost like putting on makeup. I'm not sure how to put on makeup, but so it should be easier for the ladies. I'm putting on the eyeliner, the eye makeup, and basically his eyebrows. A little fold in his eye right here. Color of his eyes, I'll make blue. Make this fisherman's eyes blue. Just gonna go in here. Nice dark blue in there. A little highlight. This goes up. It's from the side here a little bit. There's a warmth right there. Dark warm. I'm just going to kind of put that together where you actually don't see a lot of what's going on here because it's in his eye here. Then there's eyebrow. Probably a little bit more gray, so I'm put a little lavender in there like his beard. A little dark right here in his beard. It's got a lot of character marks in this, but I think it's AI doing that. It just makes it, you don't have to put as many in. Like here he's got little wrinkles, and you can put some of them in, but I'm not going to put as many in. I don't think we need all of them in there. This eye goes a little bit more. It's got a flap of skin over top. This eyelid. Just a little bit darker in there. Goes right down to his cheek here. Let me take my needle rubber eraser because it's starting to bug me, this blue that I have in there. So I'm taking a needle rubber eraser. I'm going to clean it up and this is the one I used to kind of ruin the paper. But if I go over it really quickly, I'm just like rubbing the needle rubber over the masking. I actually ripped the paper right there because it's wet. Oh darn. Oh well, use my finger. You can feel if it's wet then. Ruining a little bit of the paper. Now, never take off when it's even damp, because what you're doing is you're taking off the dampness, and the paper is not as tough as if it's damp as it is if it's nice and dry. See, I'm taking off a little bit of the paper, and this is tough paper too, by the way. This is the board, so but it'll all be fine. It also could have been because of what I did to the, like I said, again, I rubbed it, that could make it affect too. Alright, so there's a light hitting off his face, right? Now, because it's so harsh, I would always go back in and soften some of that. Alright, so now let's go in and soften some of that, and here the paper is ripped. I'll just take it off a little bit more. And now come in and make it kind of orangey, some of the area, because a lot of this will be orange because it's kind of reflecting the sun that's over here. It's not really white over here, it's more orange. So I don't do it like a wash. I'm pretty much almost doing this dry brush like, because I don't need to have a wash. It's white with I want a little bit of color and texture in there. So I'm almost dry brushing it. Go in there and let's see. The lightest spot is right there. Let's take a little bit more of this orange, and then put it into here too. This coat is not white; it's just more of an orange that's hidden there. And this part over here should have been a little bit darker, but I'm going to show you how to go back in there. I'll make it a little bit darker because it really needs to be a little bit darker for the values to pop out to make it look more vibrant. The lighting on him, and you can do that. You can do that afterwards. You can always go back into a wash, and that's what my one video was about. Was it this week or last week? I don't even remember anymore. The mic closer to me, it's right on me. My mic is right next to me. It's actually right here. If you can see it, it's actually right in front of my mouth. I'll just talk a little bit louder, I think. It's Sunday morning, so I haven't talked as loud. Let's see, if we soften this edge right here. Let's see, this is a little bit too dark. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of taking all this and making a little bit all together. This right here is a little bit, it's a little bit darker right here, his hair. And so let me go through the whole thing and give it a little bit more darkness to it, because it's not light, it's not in a light area, it's just light beard, but it's still, if I squint my eye to make this edge look really light, this has to be a little bit darker. So I'll take a little bit darker and just wet it, and I'm just gonna wet it all together. And just get a little bit darker, because you don't really need the texture so much as you need the values. The values, again, are so important to get the right values. The values show everything. I mean, it's about the values. This light will not look light if the values are not in order. So I'm going to do that before I start. Because to me, it's more important to get the values, the color, the light that I have on the painting. That's what is important to me. I want it to look like this is really vibrant right here. And if I don't have the right values, then I mean, I can have it a little bit different, but this definitely has to be darker. So let me just darken that right away. So how do I do that? I pre-wet this again. I re-wet this whole area. And I just need to make this darker because I need to have this area pop out and be warm. Now I know it's white and it's not white in the picture, but we can have some white in there, and we can play that to our own desire, whatever we want. Here I'm just gonna make this a little bit darker. Just gonna go in there with a little bit darker colors. And that'll pop it out a little bit nicer. And also at the same time, I can make it more identified too. Nothing's gonna hurt it by going into it a second time. It can still look very fresh if you float the pigment. Yes, I will darken right here. Yes, right here. Yep, I'm definitely gonna definitely do that. Because again, I'm looking for the lighting. The lighting to me is the most important thing about the painting. I need to have the lighting look like what I have here. And a lot of times you will not get it the first wash because, you know, you're being careful and you're not getting everything exactly the way you want it. But that's why, you know, you practice. You just keep on working it until you feel like it's what you want. This is all a little bit too light too. So just darken a little bit. Actually, his cheek is too light too. So we're gonna go right in there and just darken it, pre-wet it. And so what I do is I wet the area. His eye is too light here. I wet the whole area. Wetting the whole area because then I can again work it like the first wash. And like I always say, you can always go back into an area. You don't have to worry that it's gonna ruin it. It's not gonna look fresh. It'll look just as fresh. You just gotta make sure you use enough pigment and let it float. And again, it was supposed to be warmer, right? That's warmer his cheek. can put a little bit more of a gray right here. You know, it's hard sometimes to get it the first wash because you're not quite sure because you're gauging it towards what, there's nothing else around that you're gauging it to yet. So always, you know, don't worry, you can always go back in. And this is what I practice. I mean, I'm doing this because I need to practice that and figure out how to make things, you know, the first wash a little bit better when you're doing the first wash. See, I'm keeping the lights now towards more towards his side. That's where it is really. This can be a little bit darker. Now you can always go back in and make the small details. That's easy. You know, it's these larger areas that you have to watch out for. Watch the larger edges, larger areas. All right, it's over an hour now, but I'm gonna keep on going a little bit here. Normally I like to try to stop it at 1 hour, but we're gonna go a little bit longer. I'm gonna get it done. It's a little bit more, you know, when you're doing portraits, it's a little more complicated. There's a little bit more drawing involved and a little bit more, you know, details than your average landscape. I'm putting really dark here now. Get this little dark right here. And there's a nice dark underneath his mouth here. It's amazing how much help the details help. I mean, it is very important to get the details in there at a certain time, but you have to wait until you get all the big picture done first. You always have to do that. You always have to watch the big picture, and then you can get the small stuff afterwards. You gotta take your little time, take your time. Put his eyelashes in here. Eyebrow, I mean. Eyebrow, not eyelashes. It's fun doing, you know, guys, because if you're off a little bit, it's okay. It's okay to be a little bit off with some of the wrinkles and drawing, because there's character, a lot of character in his face, so you can use that to your advantage. Let's get a little bit of this warmer. This got kind of hard-edged here, but I'm going to soften it with a little bit of water. Again, the paper here is pretty much damaged, and so I have to lay it in, and then hopefully it will hide a little bit of the damaged paper. This part right here got a little bit too high, too low. I mean, this is the fun part too. This is where you just spend some time and work it. I do have a little bit more light here. Like I said, a little bit light, a little bit more light than is in the photo. I just got a little bit. The white is a little bit whiter because this is not white in the picture, but I kind of like how it looks with the white in the photo or my painting now. So I'm going to keep it. Go in here and just. I can also go back in with white paint. I'm trying not to as much as I can at the moment. I'm trying to leave it because it gets kind of chalky. So I'm kind of going to wait until I get the white paint in there. Like here, a little white paint. Yeah, usually if I do put white paint in and I'm using a little bit more opaques, then I do that at the end. I do that a little bit more towards the end when that'll be on top and it's very noticeable. So I make sure I just use a little bit of that, not very much. This part of it I got too dark. So you got a black eye, so I'm going to rub that out a little bit. See how you can work it? A lot of people don't feel like it would look fresh if you keep on working over and over an area. What you got to do is just tickle it, let it sit, let it put the water back in, and then let the paint float on top. Like I'm going to put a little bit lighter color there, and so I just need to wet it. Even with the paper damaged, the water will float the pigment, and so now I'm putting pigment on top of the water, and it'll just level itself out nicely. It'll still give me a soft edge. And it will look transparent. Now I'm getting rid of all my hard edges, and so I'll have to go back in there with hard edges. A little bit darker. Same thing with this side. I'm just going to do that. I go back in here, get the edge of my beard here. Let's get his inside his ear here a little bit. I'm sorry that I'm taking this long. Unfortunately, this one took a little bit longer. I got a little bit darker in his nose right here. Darker here. Goes along. And then let's just soften this. Now let's use some white, and then we'll be done. Tone this down here a little bit underneath his chin. hat, more of texture in this hat. So I'm not going to use pure white on some of these things, like this hair right here. I kind of like how this hair goes from, this kind of comes in here. And it's up to you if you want to do this. You don't have to do this part where you're using opaques, because a lot of purists will not use white. And that's fine. Don't use it. That's fine. I like to use it. I feel it just gives another added dimension to it, which I actually kind of like. I kind of like that look, and so again, it's up to you. You decide if you want to. That's too light. Oh, just smudged it. A little highlight on his nose. A little bit in his beard here. I think it gives a neat kind of look when you put this on there, actually, that you don't get with just using pure watercolor. I mean, you could use the masking fluid like that, but I just think it gives it a neat kind of look. Oh, I forgot to get the masking fluid off of here. This is like this little part of a zipper. Where's the best place to get this crescent board? I get it at Jerry's Artorama online. As I buy it in big quantities. I buy 15 sheets or boards at once. That's where I've gotten mine. They also sell it at Blix.com. I found it to be less expensive at Jerry's compared to the other places. But look for the sale. Look for sales, definitely. Alright, one last thing, and that's just a little bit more detail on his eye, and then we're going to be done here. This part right here is very important because, again, this is his eye, and so you want that to be looking really good. Put a little blue in there. A little bit too much. Warmth, and then we're going to be done here, guys. Sorry it took a little bit longer. I know you all want to get out there and start painting or go play in the snow if you're in a snowy area. So put it down evenly and see how it looks. I'm probably going to mess around with that eye a little bit when you guys are gone. Just to, I want to make sure it's perfect. I like the eyes that look perfect. There we go, that's a little bit better. He's got real character in his eyes on this thing. His nose, okay, his nose is okay. A little bit darker here on the side. Okay, I think that's about it, guys. I think we're going to leave it at that. So there you have the old Fisherman, and look at how this has to be darker too. Oh boy. I really, look how light that got. Isn't that, see how light that got? Let me do that real quick. Hey, you got a couple more minutes. I'm going to show you again how to make something darker, even though, you know, like this got way too light. I mean, this, it dried so light, and it may have been a part to do also because of, like I said again, that I had done. So re-wet the area, re-wet it. So real lightly, all I'm doing is applying water back over it, and then I'm going to put more pigment. I just didn't have enough pigment in the first washes, and so we need to have this dark. And it'll take like 5 seconds to get it darker. I just need it darker though. Need to get that dark so it pushes everything towards the light, and this is part of my dark area, so we need that to be dark. And to get it dark, you need a lot of pigment a lot of times, and that's one of the reasons I always tell my students, get fresh pigment, or whole bind pigment that stays fresh, and you get a lot of it when you're putting it down, and make it look 20% darker than you want it, because it's going to dry 20% lighter. There we go, much better. See, it didn't take long. Put this hand in a little bit darker. All right, now we're pushing it up. We're pushing our eye back up to this area. Is what I wanted. Push it up to the face. All right, there we go. Thanks, guys. There you have an old fisherman. And any questions, just let me know. I'll put them into the description part of the video, even if after it's done. You can always ask questions. And if you want to try it, go ahead. I don't have a photograph of this on, you know, like I do the paint-alongs. But you can just stop the video and take a little shot of this one right here. Like right there, just take a shot of that. And here, I'll make it big for you real quick. I'll make it real big for you. 1 second. There, you can take a shot of that. And there you go. Take a shot if you want to try it. Look at how dark it is compared to what I had done. But it's fine. It's good practice for me. I enjoyed it a lot. And give it a shot if you want. All right. So until next Thursday, we're going to be doing it on Thursday, a paint along. I'm not sure what it is yet. But come on by and paint along with us. All right. We'll see you later. Have a great Sunday, everybody.